we go. How's it going, Mark?
Good, thank you.
We're finally doing this, man. It's
Indeed.
been a long time coming. Welcome everyone to the Medical Sales Mentors podcast. This is going to be episode 1 on this nice day, August 5th, 2020. Like I said before, we've been wanting to do this for a while, and we just, the demand for it now is, everyone's in a state of, a lot of people actually are in a state of panic, and people are worrying about their job, and it is kind of an emergency situation for a lot of people, and we want to get the information out there that's going to help them land the role that they love. So, Mark, welcome. And how are you doing? How are things?
Hanging out here in Michigan, where we are still trying to get the whole COVID thing under control. So,
yeah, here we're not doing so bad. We've had some increase in cases, but nothing crazy. Why don't we go ahead and start off with telling us a little bit about yourself, and how you came about finding medical sales mentors, and just kind of give us a little bit of background.
yeah, no problem. I was doing the corporate America thing out in Torrance, California, working for American Honda at their corporate headquarters in Torrance. And it was a fun job. It was a blast, in fact. But I found that I was driving 100 miles round trip per day, 5 days a week on the 405 freeway.
Wow.
From LA right now is probably squinting because they're familiar with that little journey. I just decided, you know what, life's short. I got to do something that isn't going to stress me out on the freeway like this. And so I decided to start writing professional full-time resumes as a living. And then I was in Orange County, Aliso Viejo, California, which is the medical device capital of the world, and at least it was. And that's when I realized that people needed more than resumes to find the job that they wanted. And we started to get into some other things like interview skills training and job search training. And of course, LinkedIn came along. And so at the end of the day, what we did is we had this company which morphed in from being a specialized resume writing service into an extremely specialized boutique service that helps sales professionals land their desired role in minimal time in either any of the following three, which is either med devices, biotech, or pharmaceutical sales.
So you're on this, you're doing resumes for people, and obviously as you continue to do that, there was little things that kind of hinted to you that, holy cow, people need this whole other dimension of services, if you want to put it that way. There's you're finding other little things that you can do for people, and finally you just realize, wow, people need this whole package where it's almost like a package for online presence in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you came along with the online reputation management, which is an Achilles heel of most of these folks. I should back up and actually add that I was working with the HR at Honda, so I got my toe in the water on what it is they do and how they find talent. My wife had been an HR director for $1 billion plus company, and so I started to gain insight from the perspective of employers. What is it exactly that they're looking for? And I started to realize, wow, you know what? They need to see the whole package on a person. They can't just see a resume and go and interview someone based upon a resume that comes floating in. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, it was surprising as I started, obviously I started the online reputation management and doing that for clients. But it was interesting, the more you kind of go down the rabbit hole a bit, and you really realize that there are a ton of employers and recruiters that are, literally just looking people up on their Facebook account before they even look at their resume. Like, they'll read the resume name, and while they'll kind of briefly go through the resume, but they'll go and check them out on Facebook. And I thought it was the craziest thing when I first heard about that. And then you find out that 77% of people are doing this. HR managers are doing this.
Yeah, it's unreal. There's a very big misunderstanding on the part of a job seeker who hasn't been out there in, let's say, 5 to 10 years on how exactly do you get into interviews. And now, with the advent of social media and LinkedIn in particular, you've got, you know, all sorts of hurdles really to get over in order to get ahead of your competitors and get into these interviews. So
Exactly.
not it's definitely not job searching the way that people remembered in the past, and that's the biggest problem people face is they come into a job search today thinking, "Oh, this worked for me 5 years ago. It must work now," and then they realize, no, it doesn't.
Exactly. Well, this podcast, we're hoping to reach out to more people. We really want to engage with the community and, get the message out there that we're here to help people. And, obviously, hopefully on a monthly basis, if not bi-weekly basis, give you guys awesome tips that you can use in your job search. Um, Really, the purpose of this show is we'd like to pick, certain topics that really hit home or that we find people really need to or really want to learn about or are curious about certain things going on in the economy, certain aspects of job searching like age bias and how to overcome it. Generally, what we want to do is we want to pick a couple topics each month and elaborate on those. So this podcast, our first one, we want to talk about getting into the unadvertised jobs and what that entails. And then the second topic we'd like to cover is finding the right role in minimal time, because obviously time is of the essence. And in the economic climate that we all unfortunately find ourselves in these days, it's going to be, it's who knows what the future holds. So, do you want to go ahead and start? Why don't we just go ahead and start talking about the unadvertised jobs, Mark? What do you say?
Okay. Yeah, I want to obviously share with people stuff that they can do on their own, actionable, items here with regards to getting into the unadvertised job market. I should just say, saying I haven't seen any real strong, viable stats for our demographic with regards to the unadvertised job market. So everything that I'm sharing with you is based on a sampling of about 2 to 3 candidates per week that go through here. So what is that? 100, 120 candidates, and they're all, sales, business development, operations folks within our market sectors, which again are med device, biotech, or pharma. So I would just kind of preface everything I share at this point and say, with regards to the unadvertised job market, it has got to be over 50% of the opportunities out there now are unadvertised. They're never going to be advertised. So, you can, did you want me to kind of go into some items where people can, consider those tactics and employ them on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you, so obviously the name kind of speaks for itself. Unadvertised job market. Obviously, putting two and two together, that's jobs that people don't generally post. They just fill up because of employee referrals or whatever. If you want to kind of just elaborate on that a little bit, just to kind of touch on, for those of you who don't know, what is an unadvertised job?
Not an advertised job is basically, I think, the predominant way that employers are hiring right now. And if I had to give some sort of a 10,000-foot overview of what is going on here in the unadvertised job market, at least specific to our markets, it would be this. It's all about creating perfect timing uh, within the dictated roles that are out there. So what's happening right now is you've got companies where they had people that are laid off, whatever reason, they transferred or they got promoted, etc. And in the past, and this is in a sharp contrast from us today, from us, let's say, 2 years ago. In the past, when someone vacated a role, the company would, typically put a "we're hiring" sign out in the front window. Today, they're not, or at least half of them are not. And so, what I'm finding today is when there's a vacated role, it is typically sitting there for up to about 6 weeks, and it's not being contested. Very few people know about it. So what we've done is we've really mastered the whole art of, okay, how do we find these vacated? How do we create perfect timing where we're, in there talking to the right people about this vacated role? So that's a 10,000-foot overview of the whole unadvertised job market.
Very good. Very good. So let me ask you this. What is driving the growth of the unadvertised job market?
Well, again, we're such a niche boutique service. There honestly isn't anyone doing what we're doing, which is this packaging and promotion of people within our area of specialization and then within our network um, of, you got to realize we've been doing this for 23 years. So we've got a small army of what we call trust agents that help people,
Yeah, we're a little bit ahead of the game, aren't we?
that open doors for people. You might as at their employers. So we got everybody from Abbott through Zoll out there working for us. You might as well think of them as the new recruiters, because that's really what they are.
Yeah.
Which, circling way back to your question, which is what's driving it. This is just my 2 cents worth. And again, there isn't any general reporting out there. It's just my personal observation based on 124 a year. The thing that's driving the unadvertised job market is the advent in the last 2 years of employee referral programs. They have taken over. Employers today, when a job is vacated, they really want to get that next person in there through employee referral, through someone that they already know and trust, who's working for them, typically at their company. And the whole thought of employee referral programs, you got to realize this is still somewhat of a novel concept. It's kind of like, if you can recall, back when you first saw bottled water in the grocery stores, everybody thought that's ridiculous, that will never take off. But it did over time. And likewise with the quality of people that are coming into a company through an employee referral program, which the last stat I saw was that it's 45%. 45% of all new hires are coming in through an employee referral program. The
Wow.
quality of it is just better ranked for quality. And this resource on this, I can quote, would be JobBite, JobBite.com, by employers themselves. And JobBite's annual survey of um, recruiters and how the feedback from employers is that an employee referral ranks number one as far as the quality of new candidates coming in. It's also the least expensive, typically. So right now, one of the motivators, obviously, for employee referrals is compensation. The compensation that we saw up until, let's say, in 2018, 2019, it was hovering around $3,000 for an employee referral. And now today, with certain companies out there in our wheelhouse, which is everything from Abbott through Zoll, we're seeing that figure go up to $4,200.
Hmm.
Players are recognizing, wow, this is for real. It's here. It's not going anywhere, and it makes a good uh, sense from a return on investment standpoint. The interesting thing, because nothing stays the same, is that um, $3,000 employee referral commission used to be paid up front. And now what's happening is that the employers are realizing that when they hire people that way, sometimes they don't work out. And typically, statistically, if the person's with them for 6 months, they're going to stay for a long time. So what we're finding now on the part of the employers is they don't pay that employee referral commission up front. Now it's at about the 6 month mark typically.
Gotcha. Well, and people probably if they've subscribed to our newsletter, or if they've seen your work on I'm sorry, not Facebook, LinkedIn, um, they probably have heard the term trust agent before, and how they, and what role do our trust agents in a way play into the unadvertised job market?
This is absolutely huge. If you were to say, hey, what's the one thing that totally differentiates you guys from every other service out there? It's our trust agents. So let me define who they are. Trust agents are all previous customers of ours that used our services, typically our packages, to get into their current role. And those roles are typically, well, they're almost all sales, business development, operations roles. Um, but the trust agents are now working at a couple hundred companies. I think we've got over 200 employers, and we've got, gosh, I think we're 229 trust agents right now that I can call, get on the phone, and say, hey, my, you know, client that I'm working with right now is looking to get into your company. Can you help us out? So, what do trust agents do for us? It's really two things. One is they're going to get on the phone and talk to you about their company, whether there's an advertised job there or not. That plays out as it does. But they're going to tell you the straight scoop. What is it like to work there? You don't want to, have any surprises at this point in your career. And those trust agents are the single best source of 11th hour accurate information about their company.
Mm-hmm.
Put you in contact with them. You're not doing any cold calling in our process. You will be well armed with the questions that you want to ask them based on what's important to you, right now at this point in your career. And then secondly, 90% of the time, the trust agents will then put you into their employee referral program or allow their name to be used as part of the application process. A big thing that's happening now, and this is real 11th hour, by the way, Matt, is I'm finding that a lot of these larger companies out there, instead of just having my candidates just apply for a job online through LinkedIn, I'm finding that what's happening with my trust agents is they're being assigned these customized URLs from the actual employer that they are to give via email to the job applicant, and then that thing tracks the entire application process.
Oh,
And that
wow.
ties into an HRIS, kind of a cradle to grave software that's out there right now, which employers use. And that's the new thing I'm seeing now. And it makes a lot of sense because it's just, hey, click on the URL. You don't have to tell us who sent you, and it automatically gives a credit towards that employee.
Interesting. So, for those who don't know, you kind of describe this when somebody signs up for one of your packages, but there's something called the 12 report,
Yeah,
and
the
then
twelve.
there's also, yeah, 12 report and batches of three.
Yeah,
Um, can you kind of can you describe what that's about?
yeah. This is really neat. This is really all about um, the unadvertised job market. And again, I think I said at the beginning of this, people need new tools. Great to have old tools as long as they're working, but it would be better to have new tools that you can use um, to get out there and pop interviews in the unadvertised job market. So we have developed two new tools in that regard. I'll kind of go through at a 10,000 foot level. One's called the 12.5 report, and the other one's called batches of three. Um, Here's basically how they work. The 12.5 report is simply this. Then I've got a candidate that's I'm working with, and they're in their job search. What I ask them for is what's called the 12.5 report. It is the following. I want to know their top 12 companies that they would want to go to work for. So generally, when I ask that question, they come up with Abbott, Amgen, Cardinal, Thermo Fisher, whatever. Typically, those are larger companies, kind of household name companies. So hang tight. So I get this list of 12 companies. Then I ask them for the list of their five top colleagues that are out there that they normally, and here we go, we're going to do an old school tactic, but we're going to show you a new spin on it. Normally, when you get into a job search, one of best the best advice for you is contact your top five colleagues that are out there. They're probably your same age. They're probably in the same industry, which again is med device, biotech, or pharma. And you would say to them, "Hey, I'm in a job search, and here's what I'm looking for. Keep your ears and eyes open for me." And does that work? Yes, but here's the issue. In today's world, everybody, running around 24/7 and 60 miles an hour, people are going to forget
Yep.
after a job search. So what we do is we have at the end of that conversation, we have a new twist on this, which is called the 12-5 report. Here's how it works. I go into the network of those five colleagues that my candidate's going to call. I go into the network on LinkedIn and I pull up second level contacts, people they don't know that are in that colleague's network. And guess what? They're working for one of those 12 companies that they've already got as on their master list of companies that they want to pursue. And so at that end of that conversation now, instead of saying, "Hey, keep your ears and eyes open for me, I really appreciate your help," you close the conversation with, "Hey, I found, these four or these five individuals in your network, and they um, are working for some companies that I'm really interested in pursuing. I'm doing some research on those companies. Would it be okay if I reached out to these individuals and basically say to them I was referred to them by you?"
Hmm.
Well, nobody gets turned down doing that. And what we end up doing is we get those people into informational interviews with these total strangers. And those total strangers, here we go, 6 degrees of separation, are in fact very good friends with this colleague of yours. Let's just say it's Jim Smith. So Jim Smith says, "Yeah, go ahead and reach out to them." You now are reaching out to these four or five total strangers who've known Jim Smith forever, and they're working at the companies you want to go to work for. And then we walk you through the whole process of getting them on the phone, getting them connected to you, switching from a second level to a first level, and then get them on the phone and conducting an informational interview, which is critical not just for developing rapport with that person that you're going to need, but for making sure that this company is in fact a good fit for you from a culture, from a corporate culture.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what
anyone who's read How to Win Friends and Influence People knows it's great to ask people about themselves. So when you say informational interview, like, are they asking people about, you know, the position? Are they asking, so say they get a contact through LinkedIn or whatever, and they set up an interview with them and they call, you call it an informational interview. Are they asking about their particular position or what's kind of entailed with that?
the well, one of two things is happening. Either they're asking about the company as a whole and what it's like to work there as a mid to senior level sales person, which is our whole niche. Um, I should say our sweet spot is senior sales manager, director, and I think we have about 20% of our clientele are C-suite. The big question is if it's an unadvertised job market, it's just an informational interview, which is 80-90% of the time with these 12-5 reports. That's all it is. What they're doing, these clients of mine, is they're asking questions that are specific importance to my client to ensure it's a good fit culturally. So maybe things like, do they promote from within? You definitely want to know things like compensation related questions, so there's no surprises. How's the compensation determined? How's it measured? Who measures it and when? What's the base? What's the bonus? What are the expectations for if I do really well? You want to go into expenses that the employer covers and stuff that they don't cover. You want to talk about the competitors of this company. Who are their biggest competitors? What are they doing to show up the difference between them and their competitors. What do they like most about working there? Where they, you're not quite ready in this first conversation to say, what do you like least? But at least if there is something negative, believe me, when I called that trust agent for you to set up this informational interview, I already found out for you. I pre-screened for you if there's any issue working there because believe me, the trust agents are going to give you a line of bull about what it's like to work there because for starters, you kind of know where they work, where they live if you end up getting a job there. So,
Well, to kind of add to that, I think that the landscape is changed so much in the past, since you started 20 years, 20 some odd years ago. Um,
20,
I
23, when I was 12 years old, I was a savant. So,
lots of root beer and milk duds, right?
someone was asking questions about how old I am. So,
Well, I think one of the biggest messages that we have always struggled with, or I guess the biggest obstacle when it comes to, um, just informing people about, what's changed and whatnot, is a lot of people are still under the impression that it's just as easy as it was, 20 years ago to do it on their own, you know. And I think because of that, people don't necessarily um, see the value, I guess, in, you know, having a mentor or having a kind of like a middleman, like you said before, something that hasn't been done before, so people aren't aware that it even exists. These services exist. That you can. It's like hiring a mentor in a sense to help you with your job search, so you can actually find the role that you love, not just another stepping stone.
yeah.
Um, Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just agreeing with you that the whole mentor concept that was a big uh, theme to everything that we do, which is that if you want to do well at something, the best advice any businessman will tell you anywhere is get a mentor. That mentor has been there, done that, made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. There are no stupid questions
Mhm.
with a mentor except the one you don't ask. So at the end of the day, the whole mentor concept is, hey, look, you don't do this for a living. We do. And if you try to do stuff on your own the way you did in the past, go for it. But I can tell you right now, you're going to make a lot of mistakes that we are going to prevent you from making. And there is actually, an emotional component to a job search as well. People get discouraged and distracted. One of the biggest challenges we see with people that do it on their own is sometimes they actually are going down the right road. They are doing the right stuff, but because they get some initial resistance, they stop.
Mhm.
Start looking at things that look like, hey, that might work. It sounds like it may work. I don't want to say we know it all, but we're kind of like that insurance company. We've seen a lot. We pretty much know what works, what doesn't work, and the key role to the mentor isn't just to motivate, encourage the person, but laser focused on what works, and what works is changing fast. Or I'd say every, gosh, without exaggerating, and this is in our net out program where we help people get through their job search. I would say every single week, without exaggeration, I'm learning something new. What works, what doesn't work, and then that old saying, the devil's in the details. We're here to make sure that you know those details 11th hour, so you don't get distracted. You get distracted, you end up wasting time. Time is money.
Well, didn't you? You were telling me the other day that I mean, you have people that have applied to almost 100 different positions
Classic.
before finally pulling the trigger, with finding someone to kind of help them and guide them a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that's classic, and it's very disheartening. And what you're looking at is someone who put together their own resume. And I would say, in most cases, people have a pretty decent resume. And then what they try to do is they try to apply online classically through LinkedIn. Nothing wrong with that. But what's wrong is that statistically, the chances of landing an interview by doing what I just described, what you're on your resume, you applied online on LinkedIn without an inside contact. I don't know the stats, But I would just say, from an anecdotal standpoint of the people that are coming in here and working with, it's not unusual for my clients prior to working with us to submit to 100 or more jobs. Doing that, there is just the chances of success are just nil. I
And
mean,
what is the average number of trust agents that your clients will talk to before they land a role? So you compare. So you have 100 job interviews, or how many people do they generally meet up with before they actually land a good position?
you're going to want to sit down for this number, and yes, we can back it up. The answer is seven.
Wow.
So when you go through and you do one of our packages where we're basically walking you through your whole job search, at the end of the day, and I just did this literally yesterday with a candidate. I asked him, once they land the role, how many jobs did you apply to through trust agents? And the answer, I would say, 2018 was five. And today, and this is probably, the COVID uh, impact, the answer is seven. So the bottom line is you're applying to seven jobs through our process, and then that's it. You're done. Why are you done? Because you've got everything that you need that you didn't have before. It wasn't just our trust agent, it was the whole package of all the items that we put together for you to make sure that you were, as we alluded to at the beginning of this conversation, everything the employer's looking for, because they're looking at the whole package.
One of the well, and to kind of expand on that a little bit, it's kind of like we've always kind of said, it's like a dating service model, a dating service for job seekers. Like when you people probably have used dating services before, they might be familiar with it. Who knows? But basically, you create like an online profile for people to go and learn all about you in a sense. Um, and it
Well,
sounds like the tools that these the people that sign up with your packages and with medical sales mentor services, they're kind of checking all the boxes here, and really they're fine tuning everything so that they are pretty much the ideal candidate, and they're irresistible to HR managers.
yeah, let's talk about that. Hey, you know what? It's funny that I would say, and this was really started about, I would say, let's say 18 months ago, 2 years ago, where we just completely acknowledge, you know what? The best model out there that we can duplicate is an online dating service. And here's how it works. And I admit, I'll tell you right up front, that's all we did is we sold the concept. Online dating services work. Why do they work? Well, let's start breaking it down and I'll show you what it is we do and what it is they do.
Real quickly,
Yeah,
my first guess when I heard about it is, okay, so why do dating services work? Well, it's for one, it's online, so it's convenient, but because people don't have the time.
that's funny. All right. Well, here's the deal. I'm single, let's say. My wife's out of the room. And I want to go find a date. All right. So how do I do that? I go to an online dating service. I have never talked to anybody out there at this point who doesn't know somebody who got a date or got married through an online dating service. So I'm thinking, okay, that sucker works. What can we do to duplicate it within our business model for medical sales mentors? So if you take a look at the online dating service model, here's how it works. You contact the dating service, obviously, but you don't go on dates immediately. What's the first thing you do? You fill out a profile. And what's the profile do? The profile tells you not just for people that are going to date you what they're getting, but just as importantly, it tells you about yourself. You kind of stand back from the mirror and go, oh, okay, that's who I am. For a lot of people, that's probably the biggest challenge in their whole job search is standing back from the mirror and being objective and realizing, hey, I'm not the person that I was, 5 or 10 years ago. But
Yeah, or like what sort of things do I actually want to put on the profile? Do I want to leave this out, or do I want to put this in? Like, I totally understand what you're saying.
yeah, so what happens, you fill out the profile and then you go on dates. Well, when on dates, obviously, you know how that works with the dating service model, and you see pictures of people and you go out there and you have, copy it, whatever. we decided let's do the same thing. So from a profile standpoint, when you come here, it's the same thing. We've got to take a look at who are you. We got to make a product out of you, and that's the equivalent of the profile. So the profile that we put together for you, it's actually it's actually in four forms. You don't need all four of them, but here it is in a la carte form. So one is a not just a resume, but a branded resume. I'll get back to that. A LinkedIn profile, Gallup Clifton strengths assessment, which I want to talk about, and then lastly, it's your interview skills. So that's really us packaging you, making a product out of you. That's the whole portfolio part, the profile part of the house. Once we look at all those four items and pick up whichever ones you need, and then put all that stuff together for you, then we go on dates. Well, what does that look like in our model? On our model, you're not you're not going to wing it. You're not going to go out there and start applying online on LinkedIn and mid reps or whatever and hope for the best. Through our model, we have actually figured out 5 different ways to make sure you've got an inside contact at the company that you want to go to work for, and that you are picking the right jobs, right companies. So we help you with that whole dating side of the equation. One of those ways is that we let's say you got this job alert in off of LinkedIn, which we set up for you. Everybody knows how to do their job search alerts on LinkedIn, but now instead of just applying for that job, what you're doing is you're looking at this master list that we've given you that has over 200 employers on it, showing you where all our trust agents work. And again, these are people that are previous customers of ours. We know them on a personal basis. These are real relationships. And what you're doing then is instead of applying for the job, the dating part of this is now you get on the phone talking to someone who actually works there. So instead of saying, hey, do you live with your mom? Do you have tattoos? And do you have any sort of criminal record? You now are basically on the phone talking to someone who's saying, hey, what is it like to work there? And is it a corporate culture that you enjoy? And, do you see yourself working there for a number of years ahead? What do you like best about working there? So we basically are setting you up. You're not doing any cold calling. We're setting you up for those dates, which are conversations with our trust agents working at those companies. So you're asking them all the right questions too. And at the end of the day, that's just light years ahead of any other way to find a job because A, you're going to get the correct answers to, is this the right job for me? And B, 90% of the time, the trust agents will say, yeah, well, I'll put you into the employee referral queue. That puts you to the front of the line. And that's how we achieve that 7 job application success rate. So,
And now seems like a good time to obviously bring up our job search success formula, which man has been around for. We've been promoting that for how long now? 5, 6 years. I mean, it's a flawless little concept. Um, I've always loved you know the formula, but it's credentials plus timing plus trust equals your job search success.
yeah. Well, let's define job search success and then let's get to the formula. So, job search success means finding the right job, and forgive my use of the term job, I know it's pedestrian and we're dealing with professionals, but finding the right job in the least amount of time and effort. I think that's probably as good a description of job search success as we're going to have here. So, how do you do that? How do you find the right job in the least amount of time? We figured out it's just a formula. When we reverse engineered all our success stories, we kept coming back to these 3 parts of an equation that were always there. They were always the denominators for success in these stories. Here they are. So you got timing, you got trust, you got credentials. Um, Credentials, what is that? The credentials to do with the resume and the LinkedIn profile and the Gallup Strength Finders assessment and the interviews. skills. So
Yeah,
those are
the basically your online presence, because in today's day and age, that's
your whole online reputation management is part of that. So you actually have 5 items in there. Um, that last one, online reputation management, by the way, tends to still be the Achilles heel of people. We'll have people that are coming in here and they're like, got um, social media issues that they're not even aware of. So that's kind of a new part of the credentials package, but you absolutely must have that. So again, it's the resume, LinkedIn profile, Gallup assessment, online reputation management, and interviews. Interviews. Trust. You must have an inside contact. There's no way in hell you can edit that out, right? I think this one. But you're going to land a role.
that's
It's
okay.
not inside contact. It's not going to happen. The last 2 years running, I love to say I have 100% success at having an inside contact with everybody who landed the job. But wouldn't you know it, it's only 99.9% because every year the same woman, the last 2 years running, actually found a job without an inside contact. Throughout my whole hanging here, 100% of the time needed on advertised or an inside contact.
Right.
Use the trust person. It's an inside contact. How do we find those inside contacts for you? We got 5 different ways. It's not just us handing you this report saying, hey, here's where our 229 trust agents work. It's far more than that. That's just one of 5. That's the trust part. Timing. Timing is really always the final part of the equation. The company has to be hiring, and um, it really comes down to this. It's 2 markets you're looking at. You're looking at the advertised job market and the unadvertised job market. So for the advertised job market, obviously the timing is perfect. It appears that this company is hiring. It appears so because I was just on LinkedIn and I saw, okay, Cardinal Health is hiring and they're looking for, DSMs out of St. Louis with specialization in respiratory and, you know, whatever. So the timing on that is pretty obvious. Where it's not so obvious, though, is the unadvertised job market. And what we did, and this is a huge part of what we've done and what we offer that is an incredible advantage for people, is we have figured all kinds of ways into creating perfect timing for an unadvertised job. How in the world do you get out there and get into create perfect timing in the unadvertised job market? Um, I'd like to cover a few of those right now. Do we have time for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The things that I don't want people to hear this recording and go, okay, they're just pitching their products and they want us to buy their stuff. These are some things that you can do on your own. Okay, so one is you can do your own 12/5 report. And let me get back to that.
All right. Sorry, folks. We did have some technical issues there in the middle of the call there, so we're just going to go ahead and pick up where we left off. So Mark, we were talking about. I think we were starting to lead into the talking about the Gallup Strengths Finder, I believe. Let me see here.
Yeah, we were going to talk about the 5 different ways that people can get into the unadvertised job market on their own.
That's right. There you go. All right,
Okay.
let's continue with that.
All right, here goes. Top to bottom, not in any particular order, but these all work. And I would say to some degree or another, they're kind of new tools or they're a fresh spin on an old school tool. So, number one, a 12/5 report. This is one of the best ways to get into the unadvertised job market. How does it work? Can you do it on your own? Heck yeah, this is how it works. Get a piece of paper, write down the list of your 12 companies you most want to go to work for. I don't care what they are, J&J or Amgen or Boston Sci. Then what I want you to do is I want you to put together a list of your 5 colleagues that you would normally just go to and say, hey, I'm in a job search. Keep your ears and eyes open for me. Then what you do is you go into the network of those 5 colleagues. And what you do, let's just say one of them is Jim Smith. All right, I'm going to pull up Jim Smith. I'm going to go into his network, and I'm basically looking for, I'm going to list out those 12 employers that I want to go to work for, and I want to see if Jim Smith knows anybody at those companies who's in a sales role, and preferably someone who's in my time zone. It's easier to ask questions about a corporate culture if the person isn't, you're on East Coast and they're on West Coast. So it's preferably geographically, they're not in your backyard, you're not competing for a role with them, but at least they're within the same, corporate culture from a time zone standard. That helps. So what do? What are you looking up? You're looking up salespeople, business development or operations people, roughly your own age. Why your own age? Because that's a form of commonality. It helps you to develop rapport. And what you do is you're not looking up first level connections. What you're doing is you're looking up second level connections. These are people you don't know from Adam. Okay? But they meet all the criteria for being good potential trust agents. So they're in your time zone, they're in a sales role, so they can talk with authority about what it's really like to work at that company in that kind of a role. And what you do is you circle back to your 5 colleagues and you basically say to them, hey, I've found these 4 people or 5 in your network. I'd love to reach out to them and conduct an informational interview. Is that okay? Well, nobody's ever been shot down for that. And what happens is, here we go. You are creating your perfect timing when you do this consistently, that you're going to stumble upon an opportunity at a company that's unadvertised. And you got to realize, for starters, you've got a 20% turnover rate in a B2B sales force over the course of the year, which means from the get-go, there's vacated roles all around you. So on the 12-5 report, here's what happens. You're on the phone, you're talking to this person, you're conducting an informational interview. They were a second-level contact. Now they're a first-level contact. One of 4 things are going to happen when you get on the phone. Number 1, you may hit pay dirt. I think that's the phrase. Where you're on the phone, you're talking to this person, there's a vacated role. Fantastic. You get into an interview. Second option, you're on the phone, there's not a vacated role right now, but because you have developed rapport and trust with this individual, they now are on high alert. Their ears and eyes are wide open for any opportunities around them for you, which, again, this is all about timing. Remember, go back to that success formula. Timing is like the last part of the equation. Guess what? You're on the phone with them this week, there's nothing. All of a sudden next week, you get a call, and it's like, hey, Matt, this job opened up. I think it would be perfect for you. We haven't advertised it yet. So you've got jobs that are open now that are unadvertised, jobs that are open soon that are unadvertised. The third of the 4 options here, and this is lovely. It is pure altruism. What I find, at least with my trust agents, is that you're on the phone, you're talking to this individual, there's not anything there now, there isn't anything coming up, but guess what? They end up going into their own network at other companies to look for a job for you, to put out their feelers for you. You watch the news today and all the bad stuff happening in the world, you swear to God there's no such thing as altruism. Let me tell you something, man. It's alive and well, and I see it all the time. People want to help people. They really do. Turn off the news. And what happens with the trust agents is they're going to reach out to other companies working at other, within their network at other companies. Mm-hmm. And they already know that, hey, if they help get you into that job, it's a win-win for everybody. So that's the third option, which is they, without even asking them, they will go into these other networks for you, which is wonderful. Fourth option that could happen with this 12-5 report. You see a job that's open out there, and you contact the trust agent. So now the conversation is a little different. It's not an informational interview. It's, hey, I found this, CNS gig out of, Boston. I want to talk to you about Jim Smith referred me to you. So you're initially pursuing a job that's advertised, but then once you get into the actual phone screen or in-person interview, what we find happens, I'd say about 15% of the time, maybe 20, is that the person interviewing you is going to go, you know what? I know you came in here for this role that we're talking about right now, but after talking to you, I realized you might be better positioned for this other role that's coming up over here that's unadvertised. And, would you like to talk about that? So don't be surprised if you get the flip from the advertised role to the unadvertised role. It's all a matter of the company doing something really smart, which is sizing you up and making sure that you're a good fit for a particular role. And heck, that's what they do for a living. So that's the 12-5 report. I just want to quickly go through 4 other ways that you can get into the unadvertised job market. One is just obviously just informational interviews, which obviously ties into the 12-5 report. But the 12-5 report tends to lean towards bigger companies, that are out there, that are household names. When you just consider informational interviews just with companies that are of interest to you, I think that's a good move to make, because you'll find smaller companies that a lot of my colleagues enjoy working in. There's more flexibility and there's more control over their environment. And when you start putting together a list of the smaller companies that you might want to go to work for that weren't on your top 12 list, you're going to find it's a very small world, and you can probably find people out there that you can conduct informational interviews with regarding that particular company. And again, it all comes down to timing. So you never know. Try that. Those are informational interviews. The third option is to connect with your existing recruiters. So how does that work? What you want to do is you want to go on LinkedIn. You want to click on My Network, and then you want to bring up the data base of those connections of yours that are within I think LinkedIn uses the term recruitment or talent acquisition category. And you're probably going to find you got 40, 50, 60 recruiters that are in that database. So what you want to do next is this. You want to reach out to those recruiters one-on-one, send them a message. They're all first-level connections of yours. And you basically want to tell them, hey, Julie, just a heads up, I'm back in a job search. I'm attaching my latest updated resume for you. Would love to chat with you at a certain point. All right, what's going to happen now? Well, for starters, because you didn't wait for Julie, the recruiter, to contact you, and you took the initiative, you may be creating perfect timing with Julie for opportunities. And the fact that you brought up that you're giving her your new resume is also something of value. And what's going to happen is very interesting. This is a change in how recruiters are working out there. You may find that Julie doesn't have a client or an employer with a job that is of interest to you. But what happens inevitably, because you're coming in there, you're experienced, and you're a pretty easy placement for recruiters, Julie will probably go into her network of other recruiters. And she will look for, is there an opportunity, a job out there with one of her colleagues who are members of this recruitment association that networks together. Mm-hmm. And if she finds someone, then she basically, they do the matchmaker thing. You come in, she introduces you to that opportunity through that other recruiter. This is exactly like real estate, where you've got an agent representing the buyer and you've got an agent representing the seller. And what's happening here, and this is very, very smart on the part of recruiters, is this is basically all about commission splits. So now if you get a job through this model, then Julie, your recruiter gets a commission split versus nothing because she originally didn't have a job open for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one great option. Those are contacting your existing recruiters. Don't send them this generic note. These are human beings. They're great folks. I think the best of them are out there with 10 plus years experience. Treat them like you'd like to be treated. And I think out of those 40 or so people that you reach out to that are already in your network, you're going to find that you're going to get a half dozen. They get back to you pretty quick because they got something either in their queue or in the queue of someone else that they're networking with. A fourth way that you can get into the unadvertised job market, it's your strongest doctor relationships. This is something that falls under the category of, wow, that works. Why didn't I think of that? Or it's antiquated. Does anyone actually do that? Yeah, we do. Here's how it works. If you're an experienced medical sales, biopharma salesperson, you've got some great relationships with doctors out there. And what you want to do is you want to contact them and basically ask them, hey, I'm in a job search. Would love to get your advice on something. Are there any particular companies out there that really impress you with regards to their products? People that are out there that maybe have something that is kind of landmark, game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not a product that has a differentiation strictly on cost. And what you do is you just ask them what impresses you out there, and what's going to happen next is inevitably you're going to find the names of companies that you never heard of. And I think that's really where the gold mine is out there. It's not necessarily the big OEMs, but the smaller startup, mid-sized companies that have awesome new
Exactly.
technology that's going to change everything and improve lives. And by having that list from that doctor, you then can take the next step, which is, and you got to be very discreet and sensitive in how you do this. But your next question is, can I reach out to that employer and mention that I got their name from you? That one you're going to have to play it by ear because you want to make sure, obviously, that you're not stepping on the toes of the local sales rep. But here's the drill on that. The doctor probably knows something about that company locally and what it is they're doing. And for all you know, that local salesperson could be a DSM and they're hiring. Well, hello. Now you're not stepping on their toes. You're actually becoming, the right person, the right place, the right time. And you just hit pay dirt on perfect timing again. So strongest doctor relationships out there. And this is in particular specialty call points, not so much internal medicine or PC, but really, the surgical call points or respiratory or oncology or CNS, etc. So that's the fourth of the five. The fifth one,
Oh,
the
there's a
fifth,
fifth.
there's a fifth one, the best way into the unadvertised job market, I think. And this is very 11th hour. You probably have seen on LinkedIn these pictures of people, and it's got this green banner on it that says "Open to Work."
Yep,
I
I have
don't
seen
I
that.
don't like that concept. I should say I don't like that look, but I like the concept. So I want to give you a new spin on that concept. For starters, that thing's hideous. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest here. People don't like having that banner on them. It looks funky, and I don't know who came up with the color coding, but
Well,
the
it's kind
bottom
of
line,
like
though,
it's kind of putting a weird label on yourself.
it is. It's like you're a marked person. So what I like is the concept. We call this featured candidate. And I think here's how it works. Go into your LinkedIn profile, and I can give people examples of this from our candidates, and just put in a post. Just put a post out there that, hi all. I wanted you all to know that I'm in a job search mode. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's my qualifications. Happy to help you network or help you in any way that I can. Um, appreciate your assistance in keeping your ears and eyes open for me. Okay, so what happens? What happens is that post gets read by all the connections that the person has. And for most people, they've got like, I'd say the norm is like 1,200 connections or so.
Hmm.
So you've got out that post to about 1,200 people. You're definitely going to get a response. And it's kind of neat because LinkedIn has quantifiable results, and you can see how many people actually checked you out, or I should say, how many people actually read that and viewed that. So let's say out of 1,200, you're probably going to get about 30 people pretty quick, maybe 50. What we do on our end is and this is where we put a new spin on an old concept here, um, is that we take that post from our candidate and we then share it with our 30,000 connections that we've built over 23 years. So now all of a sudden that post goes from being exposed to 1,200 people to being revealed to 30,000
Yep.
connections that are, they're our first level connections on LinkedIn. And these are all people that are, experienced medical sales,
Yeah, they're vetted people.
biopharma.
They're not just
Yeah, they're not
anybody.
random. No.
And that also
We,
gets featured candidates also through our newsletter too. For those who are wondering,
hmm
it's not just through LinkedIn. You actually get featured in our newsletter. So cool little
And
bonus
that's
there.
huge. Then all of a sudden you get a couple thousand people that are looking at you and going, "Wow, okay." So there you go. That's the fifth way.
Awesome. Well, I just real quickly, for those who are listening, you probably are aware that the sound quality on Mark's end went way up. He's actually sounding really good now, which I'm happy to hear. And we do apologize about that. It is our first podcast, and we were kind of working through the technical kinks in the beginning. Um, but after that little hiccup in the middle of the show, it looks like his sound is great now. I can certainly hear him very well. So again, apologies for that, but we appreciate your guys' patience while we got that worked out. So thank you. And then also a question for you, Mark. In your experience, how many of your clients um, actually, so out of the clients that land a role with you,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, it's what, I mean, above 90% or something like that. Uh, how many of them are actually landing an unadvertised role versus an advertised? What
It's
would you
now
say?
it's now over 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's surprising because it wasn't before. I mean, 2018 it was about 30% were on advertising. It keeps creeping up, and I'm pretty sure I know why. It's just the company is using an employee referral program, and that employee referral program drives that whole on advertised job market.
Is it just the retention rate is just different nowadays? Are you finding that people are kind of hopping between positions a little bit more frequently than they were before? Because I know that's not just true about the medical industry. I mean, there's tons of different industries that are experienced. Obviously the corporate drones, as they like to call them, the people that kind of hop from position to position. Um, I mean, crap. My grandparents, were my grandmother worked as a bank teller for 30 years
Oh
before she
yeah,
retired. So
oh yeah.
obviously we don't see that anymore, or I should say as frequently. Do you think that would be why, or one of the
I
reasons
don't
why?
I don't know. I've seen some stats on the average tenure for employment now, and granted, this was across all functions and industries, so I don't know what you know credence we can give to it. But I know it was way down. It was like 2 years or something versus
Yeah.
5. I think at the end of the day, though, what's happening is you've got the global economy now that's competing with an ever changing group of competitors. And as those competitors make changes, the employers make changes, and the employees can't all adapt to those changes, and they end up moving from one market to another. And you got to realize that certain things drive markets to just dry up. And as those markets dry up, like for example, right now with the surgical markets, it's rather hard to have anyone come in and do surgery given the present pandemic. Obviously, the surgical call points are going to be very, very difficult to reach for people right now. So the bottom line, I guess, is this: things are changing all the time, and yeah, I do see a shorter tenure for people out there.
Well, and certainly with all the COVID stuff that's going on right now, how long are people? I mean, there's obviously we've been going through all this stuff for a little over half a year now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think the day that everything was pretty much shut down was March 14th or 15th, somewhere around that area. So it's obviously changing, and it's you know we're going through a lot of different changes. How long are you seeing that people are in a job search right now? If not still unemployed.
Well, the people that before they contact us, typically they've been out there for about 6 months looking on their own, and they're doing all the right things, but they're rather limited in and their tactics and then their relationships. And so, to answer that question, prior to calling us, it's not unusual for them to be out there for about 6 months or so. Once they contact us and then they're into a job search, I can tell you pre-COVID and then current COVID situation stats. Um, Pre-COVID, we were pretty darn good at people landing a role within about 12 weeks. We had about 80% of our folks were landing a role in about 12 weeks. And it isn't a role, it's the right role. So those are good numbers compared to whatever else is out there, obviously. But current COVID world, I can only tell you that I don't have enough numbers to say, okay, here's how long the average job search is at this point. I can tell you this, though, uh, with regards to the current job search in the COVID world. And it kind of goes across the demographic of the experience level of the job seeker. So those just kind of start, VP level, director and up. Those roles are pretty difficult to fill right now. First of all, they were always kind of, few and far between.
Yep.
But I think what's happening with the COVID world is that these companies recognize it's kind of hard for them to pull a trigger and make a commitment to someone to pay them, 250,000 plus a year with plus bonus, given that we don't really know what the whole COVID impact is going to be. The middle group, which are managers, um, are, I would say they're doing pretty well. I think they're probably finding that they're getting into more interviews, perhaps than they did in the past. It's actually the next level of folks, though, which are the field sales specialty folks. Those people really, they're not having the issues that you would think they are. They are definitely getting hired. So, from a timetable standpoint, that's kind of the three levels of job seeking that I see out there.
So let's talk about now the Gallup Strengths Finder. How do you
Hmm.
kind of incorporate that when you're working with somebody new that's in a new job search?
Right.
Um, why don't you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, the Gallup Strength Finder isn't, just this passing little fad. It's a real big thing. It's the Gallup company, the same ones that do the polling uh, services. And what they do is they've got what's called a Gallup Clifton Top Strengths Assessment. What is that, a mouthful? And what it is this online, I don't want to call it a test because there's no right or wrong answer, but it's an assessment that people take. It takes about 20 minutes, and it reveals for uh, the, the person taking it their top five innate strengths out of, I'm thinking it's 37 I'm probably not off by much if that's the case. But it's things like strategic, futuristic, connectedness, woo. Um, it's basically these innate skills that people have that are driving their success, their sales, in this case, mostly sales related success. So, why do we have people take this assessment? For starters, if we can park those results on the resume, then the employer sees something that's rather rare these days, which is a objective statement about the candidate. It's not the candidate saying, "Hey, I have all these skills." It's a third party authority figure in the form of Gallup saying, "This person has these five strengths. This is what's driving their results." Um, where it really comes into play, though, then is the interviews. So when you're in an interview, and recall that's one of the five things that you need in the packaging yourself are strong interview skills. In the interviews now, instead of just talking about problems, action, and results, which is kind of an old school model, now what you're able to do is you're able to tie the results for a project, an achievement, back to one or more of those strengths. And in doing so, you're speaking the language of the actual employer, and you're now telling this very plausible story on how you can do the same thing for that employer, and emulate those results. And so, on the employer's mind, they're really it's got far greater credibility because now they're listening to their own language being repeated back to them, which is the Gallup strengths, which they're familiar with, and they're seeing the connection between the achievements and those Gallup strengths. And it also kind of resonates with the employer from the standpoint of them realizing, you know what, those are innate strengths. You're born with those. We can't teach our current people in-house those strengths. And that's a huge aha moment in the interviews where we have discovered that our candidates are very, very successful because now they're able to connect the achievements back to strengths which the employer no longer doubts.
So it's really, it really just comes down to having the right tools and the right information so you can properly brand yourself to make
Yeah,
you ultra competitive in your job search.
yeah,
Combined
absolutely.
with which covers basically the credentials, combined with having the right timing and having the inside contacts to
Yep.
land the role that you specifically want. So the difference is too is, you know, people are finding positions that they actually want to do. It's not
Yeah.
just a filler position. It's not just some, opening that you're like, oh, okay, I'll take this position, but it's not really what I want to do. Who knows if it'll work out? I don't know. These are actually positions that will, you know, in the field that you want to do. It's very specific.
Yeah, that's why when we work with candidates, we ask them a lot of questions up front about the type of role that they would like, and then when we nail the branding in the form of their resume and LinkedIn profile and whatnot, that really enables us to figure out to help them as mentors. Here we go. Stay focused on, okay, this is the type of job you should be looking for at this particular company.
Well, exactly. We the idea is to land the role that you retire from. You know.
Hey, that's, you know what? Here it is. I'd say probably 20% of the candidates come in here. They're probably in their mid 50s and they're looking for a swan song. They want to find a gig that's fun, make good coin at it, and, sail off into the sunset. We do a lot of that, and it's an art and a science that we've really mastered, and it's really fun because I realize when we do that, it's like, God, you know what? No one else is doing this. They don't have the capabilities or the network, but we do. So
Well, what are some of the bigger mistakes that you've seen um, over the last 20 years?
probably number one is shortchanging yourself, thinking you can't do it. Sound like George Bush for a minute there, didn't it? Did it? I'm gonna do it. Um, and then the other one is waiting too long. People see the writing on the wall and they ignore it and they keep thinking it's going to go away. Their boss isn't really psychotic, but yeah, your boss is psychotic, okay? So believe the writing on the wall and start getting proactive right now. You need to invest in yourself. And a lot of people, they don't want to spend the cash to invest in themselves through our services. But I kind of gently remind people, you know what, Matt, what's our return on investment on those packages? What's our guarantee? 40 or 50?
50 to 1
50 to
ROI.
1
50 to
return
1.
on investment guaranteed. So what's the other big investment you made in your life for yourself? It was your college. How much money did you spend? What was the return on investment on that? So here's the drill. Most people have gone to college, so that's no longer going to be a differentiator in this marketplace. So now the differentiator is going to be our services as a mentor, providing you all the tactics, strategies, relationships in 5 different forms, and a mentor to keep you laser focused on finding the right role. So what we're doing is we call it an unfair competitive advantage. You just aren't going to find it. Your peers don't have this, and it's what you need to find that role that you want in minimal time.
Well, and this is kind of a good segue into touching on something real quickly, and that's the topic of complacency. But
Yeah.
a lot of our clients, they're not jobless. They're actually in a position, and they're looking for something better, something
Right.
that they want to do. It's getting out of that filler position. But the problem is a lot of people are complacent. They're in that routine of waking up and going to their job every day, and coming home and spending time with their family, or and whatnot. So they don't really think, oh, okay, I need to make that jump to actually pursue something and pursue a career that I actually want to um, you know want to do. So
Mhm.
the question is so what we do the secretive, I want to call it secretive, what's the word I'm trying to find, I guess in a stealthy way of finding a new job. What do we call that? I forget. I'm trying
While
to.
you're employed,
Yes,
yeah, used to call that stealth search, but okay.
that's right. Stealth search. Yeah. So we help people who are that currently have a job
Hmm.
finding new roles, and then we also obviously help people who are in between jobs. So um,
It's 50-50, Matt, right now, by the way. Half of our candidates are in a role right now. They're just not happy, or they're seeing the writing on the wall and they realize, hey, I got to get out of here. I got to find, not just get out of here, but I want to find the right role. So,
exactly. And what we're finding too is that a lot of people who subscribe to our newsletter, they've been getting the information and reading our articles and engaging in our online community for months before they
hmm
finally actually
yeah.
take action. So that all comes back to and here's a question for you, Mark. What's the key to shortening your job search? What's the apps if you
Yeah, it's a couple of things. One is knowing what you want and then branding yourself around that and recognizing you're not the same person that you used to be. So it starts there. It starts with the self-assessment, and it's the profile part of the dating service model here. So that's the first thing that leads to the shortest possible job search. The second, I cannot emphasize this enough. Don't even seriously, I wouldn't even apply for a job these days unless you've got an inside contact. You just patronizing yourself, and it's not going to happen. You absolutely must have an inside contact to minimize your time in a job search. So how do you get that? We have 5 different ways that we make sure people get their own inside contact at a company that they apply to, and that takes you from being out there for months, because that's the exact model that you're going to hear for people that have been out there for months. I've been applying all over the place for hundreds of places. And when I ask, well, how many of those applications were through an inside contact and an employee referral program, I get this dead silence. Well, maybe 1. So if your metric is 7, if you knew that if you package yourself correctly, And all you had to do was to apply to 7 jobs through a trust agent, which we help you with. There it is. There's the ticket. But it's not just an application with an inside contact. You should have a really solid resume, which is not this bio obit of where you were, what you did. It is a strategically assembled tool to articulate your unique value now and into the future in the course of an interview. So you need the branded resume, branded LinkedIn profile, which is a whole different 30-minute subject, and online reputation management, interview skills, and the job search tactics that work. So there's a lot going on there.
Exactly. Well, this has been great. I hope that people listening have gotten some really good information to really help them in their job search. And obviously, you can reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to set up a consultation with you in order to discuss your career goals. You can actually go to our website at medicalsalesmentors.com. That's www.medicalsalesmentors.com. If you go to our services and then the Tell Us About Yourself tab, you can actually fill out a brief questionnaire. I believe it's 5 or 6 questions, just to give us a little bit of information so we can kind of pinpoint before our meeting with you, what you're looking for and what sort of struggles you've been having. And then we will set up a consultation with you to discuss everything. And there's no charge for that. So we do want to hear from everyone, and we look forward to that. Mark, was there anything else you wanted to add before we?
I think it's just one final comment here. It has to do with the why question, which is, why did we develop this service? I mean, gosh, we've been doing this for 23 years. The answer to why we do what we do, and we're a team of 4 here. We each are kind of hired guns in what it is we do. Why we do what we do is we realize we can make a very real difference in the lives of people, job seekers, and their families. And that we recognize that we've got not only tools that people can't find elsewhere, and not only networks in 5 forms to make sure people are never, applying to a job without an inside contact, but it's the whole mentor model, which is, we are your mentor, which means we're at your side, which means that we're walking through the jungle together at your side. We're going to get through the jungle in minimal time to your goal. Nobody else was doing that or is doing that. We'll see competitors every once in a while, but they lack either the industry specialization of med device, biotech, or pharma, or they don't have any network. Well, I can tell you right now, there just isn't anyone out there who's got a network, a real relationship, a small army of 200 plus previous customers, all success stories that they can tap and talk to, and have those people help them get into advertised and non-advertised job market, which is a huge competitive advantage that we knew, and that we could leverage all that and make a difference in the lives of people. And we knew if we didn't do this, nobody would be doing it. There wouldn't be anything like this out there.
Exactly. And just to touch on that a little bit more, with this podcast, we want to reach out to more people, more like-minded individuals that we want to engage more with our network and our community, and we really want to get people networking together. We want to get the information out there. We're always writing articles and posting it on our LinkedIn profiles and our LinkedIn groups that we have. They're posted on the website frequently. We have the newsletter that goes out bi-weekly, filled with a bunch of information for people to gain some new insights on what they can do to really help them again, land the role that they love and the role that they could possibly retire from.
Yeah.
So Mark, this has been great. I'm glad we did this.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's to more to come. More.
There we go.
All right.
All right, man. Have a good one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.